السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Peace be upon you all. We start the second day of Al Jazeera 17th Forum dealing with the Palestinian cause at a time witnessing transformations. We welcome you all again and with our viewers on this second day of the forum through Al Jazeera Mubashir screen and the digital platforms. Welcome to all of you, and we start off with remarks given by Dr. Mustafa Ahmad Nu'man, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates of the Republic of Yemen. Mr. Nu'man has held many posts as ambassador to India and also working with the affairs of the two Americas and international organizations, in addition to other roles throughout his political career. You have the floor. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful, ladies and gentlemen, I would like first of all to thank Al Jazeera Forum organizers, which is a platform to discuss freedoms and issues relevant to the Arabs, and Al Jazeera, with all its branches, was able to deal with the moral crisis that is witnessed by the world today in the midst of the silence through giving the details of the ugly war in Gaza, in which Israel exceeded all borders of brutality and barbarism indiscriminately against women and children. And it has carried out, and still does, all kinds of destruction despite the ceasefire, using the most modern weapons and arms that it gets freely of displacement and killing. Had it not been for the steadfastness of the people of Gaza, then nobody would have ever heard about this disaster in Gaza, and Al Jazeera has played a big role in this. We cannot take what's happening in Gaza in isolation from the competition that is witnessed in the Arab world, and this is something that is worthy of praise if exercised in a moral way, but it has exceeded this in order to gain some gains here and there, and this is a loss for all. And the expansion of the space of the enemies of the Arab world without anyone to ward them off. Gaza and all of Palestine and Yemen and Sudan and Somalia and Iraq and Syria and Libya all exemplify the political transformations witnessed by the Arab world, specifically during the decades after the war in 1967 and the Iraq-Iran war and the invasion of Iraq and the invasion of Kuwait, let alone the coup d'etats that would bring about a disruption with the past and a disruption with the positive accumulations that might have happened, and to insist to go back to square one. During this path, rich countries have been stampeding with all their resources, such as Iraq, Syria, and Sudan, and they have plummeted into failed states, and the Arab regime was unable to save them, so they all turned into experimentation fields. All of them seek only one goal, which is to dominate and control what those countries have, because they say that we have not reached the period of adolescence. I was always wondering about the insistence and the boasting of taking every crisis in the Arab world internally to the UN Security Council and considering that an achievement and looking at it as it signifies the importance of this state or that and an opportunity to get out of the internal and Arab failure. It seems to me now that the situation now is a different exemplification of the failures after that, then we cannot complain of external interventions in our local affairs, ladies and gentlemen. Regarding my country, Yemen, needless to say that we all know what happened in the south since the beginning of the move of the militias of the Southern Council headed by Aidarus al-Zubaydi. Those were strange, even though not surprising. The Transitional Council was in control of all the security apparatus in the south, and their share in the prime ministry was more than one half. Their forces, military forces, are not under the banner of Defense Minister Liwa Zubaydi. Major General Zubaydi would issue all orders, and so now we have a question here, and we leave it to the audience to think about. Why did he go to Hadramaut and Mahara in the east of Yemen, raising the concern of Muscat and Oman, and the group of Al-Houthi in the north also constitute a threat to the national state, which is suffering because of a war, because of this sectarian group, and they are trying to monopolize religion in the homeland. They undermine the peace and security, and they enhance the ability of Israel to target the Arab countries and their civil institutions and facilities, even though they pretend that they are supportive of the Palestinian cause. And therefore, the legitimate government should be supported in order to protect the interests of all and to reject the support and the financing of a group that is outside the control of the government, no matter what the pretext is. So if we look at the Arab landscape away from Yemen, we will see that most regimes that are republics, have started to look into an idea that it combines a kingdomship and a republic, and the path therefore in this path was unclear. So the deterioration has come so quickly after so many efforts that have cost so much in development, human cost, and others. So we may agree now that there is an urgent need to find an Arab new equation and formula, the goal of which is to settle the relationship between the Arab countries and to stop playing roles for the benefit of external forces that cannot be justified in the formula that should be purely Arab in their outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is easy to see the biological link between the Palestinian cause and the threats faced by the Arab region. Israel seeks through its war against Gaza, through the campaign of destruction and displacement, to put new lines aiming to start a buffer zone surrounding it, guaranteed not to have any arms in it, and it determines its supporters, its size, and its type. This way, the death machine of Israel remains to be the determinant factor of the future of this nation. The war in Gaza was an experimentation used by Israel to measure the resilience of this country and the willingness of the Arabs to resist the plans that are being put forward and planned and executed. But in fact, this is the reality on the ground. As such, we have a question now by each Arab citizen to every Arab official. What have you prepared to face this hegemony which eats up the body of our countries, even those who think that they are disassociating themselves from falling in the realm of those plans? We see non-Arab plans and projects under the banner of investment, but in fact they are a threat that is so dangerous to our region and puts our region as a subject to those external regimes which affects the future generations. Speaking deeply about Gaza is so important and vital for the future of the Arab world because the goal of the Israeli campaign was to send one message to all, saying that they are able to collectively kill without any punishment and to displace people without any deterrence and to do whatever they want in any Arab country without any permission. In the face of all that, on the other side, in the horizon, it doesn't show that we collectively feel this threat, and I see that every Arab state thinks it's able to resolve its internal problems without resorting to their neighbors. What is even more dangerous and disturbing is that some try to create crises and finance them in order to do certain agendas. At the end, I thank you for the invitation and peace be upon you all.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you so much, your Ambassador Mustafa Ahmed Nu'man, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates of the Republic of Yemen, for this speech, which shed the lights on many crises in our region, and probably the most prominent cause is the Palestinian cause, and this forum is focusing on. Now we want this cause to be expressed by its sons and to tell us about their vision for whether and their opinion about the plans for this region, whether it was Trump's plan and what's happening now and what is prepared for and how are we going forward in Gaza and in generally in the Palestinian cause. That's why we will have a special dialogue with Mr. Khalid Mish'al, the head of Hamas abroad. Abu Walid, of course, is very well known to everybody since he was since his failed assassination attempt, and maybe the new generation of journalists don't really remember or haven't witnessed that period which came after the Wadi Araba peace agreement, Israeli-Jordanian agreement, and then. So we would like to invite Mr. Khalid Mish'al for this special dialogue at Al Jazeera Forum. I would like to welcome you again, and I would like to welcome Mr. Khalid Mish'al into this special dialogue within the sessions of Al Jazeera Forum 17th round of the Palestinian cause. Abu Walid would like to welcome you. Thank you so much for having me and on Al Jazeera screen and its digital platforms. I would like to start with these questions that occupy everybody's mind. What do you think about what's happening now? Thank you, my brother Zain, and I would like to greet everybody here through the screens, and thank you for the organizers of the Al Jazeera Forum. In the name of Allah, and may God's blessing be upon His Prophet, his household, and followers. And I would like to send a special greeting to our brothers in Gaza and to our brothers and sisters in the West Bank and in Jerusalem, and to the nation that was responsible. And hopefully we will be the victorious, we and our nation. There is no doubt that we are faced by a very difficult reality after 2 years of this genocidal war. The genocidal war has stopped against Gaza, but the suffering hasn't stopped. There are different patterns of aggression and violations against Gaza, and the same thing happening for the West Bank. The Israeli thugness and attempts to subject everybody in the region is happening. What's happening in the international arena, to that genocidal war as well, especially that it came and established a new case, a new state of interaction with the cause and extreme anger towards Israel. And that came at the backdrop of an attempt to form a new international equation, of course, with the beginning of the second term of President Trump. This is a very challenging reality, and we see the ramifications everywhere. But this is what I would like to start my dialogue, and I would leave space for you and for our brothers and sisters to answer their questions. My message that I want to send, that we are not faced by one question. Today we are faced by four questions that we have to put ourselves in front of four questions. The first one, it's very well known, the reality of Gaza and its future, and also the West Bank that are witnessing very dangerous events. With, of course, that came at the backdrop of what's happening in Gaza. Gaza, after the ceasefire or the stop of the war after 4 months, suffering is still going on, and we would be demanding the opening of Rafah crossings and providing people with humanitarian aid, stopping the Israeli aggressions, and whatever is needed for the stage one of the agreement. And we are entering into phase two with all the big questions: the disarmament, the international troops, the peace council, and the withdrawal of Israeli forces as well from the yellow line outside Gaza, the future of Gaza, the relation of Gaza with the West Bank. All these big questions that we have to face. This is the big question. Yes, we are at Hamas movement, and of course, with our partners in Palestine, we are very concerned to find a political movement based on a national vision and not within this narrow party vision. We have to agree on a point to find practical solutions for these challenges and big questions that can put us in front of a new reality that can restore Gaza in its natural state, to rebuild Gaza, to help Gaza to recover, and for our dear people to go back to live as a human being, as people. And the same thing for the approach for West Bank. We're trying to do that for this to happen within our national principles and to adhere to our national identity and to keep and safeguard the right of self-determination, and that Gaza is part of Palestine, is not away from Palestine, and to open a new horizon for self-determination. And this the Palestinian cause is not on its own; it's not isolated cause; it's part of this national cause, and it's not pieces and scattered pieces. So we are of course concerned, and we can answer questions. The second question is that the Palestinian cause itself, the Tofan or the 7th of October events, what did it do? It pushed the Palestinian cause into the front line after it was kept inside closed doors. So this genocidal war has awakened people that and made the Palestinian cause a priority. There were many conferences for the Palestinian cause, but what is after that? Israel and the United States and certain parties want to deal with Gaza and the West Bank as separated geography, as two people who are separated with no national identity, with no national reference, with no future, no horizon. And this is a dangerous thing. We have to invest. The events of October 7th and genocidal war is to force Israel to pay the price for its crimes. And we have to say the source of the problems is the occupation and the lack of stability in the region. And the world suddenly realized that the hostile actions of Israel has created instability in the world and in the region. So we have to find a solution for the Palestinian cause, for those countries to recognize the Palestinian state. It's a great thing, but how can we interpret that into reality on the ground? This is the key question that we have to think about as Arabs, Muslims, friends and brothers. And this comes the question to the resistance, the armed resistance, which is quite a legitimate one. And some people want to put it that whoever carried out 7th of October, they have to push to the corner and they have to pay the price and to criminalize the resistance. We should not accept that, because this thing, if we think about the origin of the conflict and the occupation, and there is a people who are resisting occupation and they have the right of independence and freedom, so the question of resistance is a natural one, and the arms of resistance is a natural thing. So the philosophy of the resistance, since there is an occupation, there will be resistance. The resistance is the right of people under occupation, and it is part of it's a legitimate right within the international law and within the religions, and it is part of the humanitarian human memory. When we read about any nation, you start reading about its big battles resisting its enemies. So we have to read about the Palestinian cause in this from this scope. It didn't start by the 7th of October. What is really funny, when we, with all the boldness, they want to disarm the Palestinian people that is defending itself, while the militias, the agent like Abu Shaba and others, they try these armed militias. They want to keep their arms. Look into the Palestinian history. We cannot look into part of the resistance history away from its sequence. When we look into Azz-ad-Din al-Qassam with its launched its revolution and uprising in the 20s, you could have considered it as an adventure, but established for this resistance. Al-Husseini as well, the Palestinian revolution in 65, Al-Karama battle in March 68, after the defeat of 67, it was looked at it, considered as an adventure, but it started. It was a station that lifted the spirits after the defeat of 76, and this is the same thing with the first Intifada and second Intifada. Even the wars in Gaza, they don't want to have a spot for resistance. They don't want a free will. Even in the West Bank, where the resistance is fought even by the Palestinian existence itself is fought. How about the resistance? There are things that are quite essential principles, that if there is an occupation, there is a resistance. What about the changeable things when it comes? Sometimes we have armed resistance, a revolution, an uprising, even the operations like the Haram al-Ibrahimi on the 25th of February 1994. After that, there was an operation and العفولة والخضيرة and Dizengoff. So these operations followed what have happened. If we look into the essence of the conflict, we can answer the question of resistance and its arms. The third question, our problem as an Arab Muslim nation and region and Arab countries is with Israel is not only because it occupies a dear part within the heart of the Arab world, which is Palestine, or it's actually assaulting dear the Palestinian people and the people in the region as well. We discover, and we are actually convinced, completely convinced, that our problem with Israel, that it represents a threat, an existential danger to the region. Some people say that Israel is a danger to whoever tries to fight, whether in Iran and Hezbollah and Yemen and whoever threatens Israel in Iraq or elsewhere. But look at what's happening. Yes, the resistance factions and powers fought Israel. But look into Syria, the new regime. Since it started to take its first step, what has happened? Israel started with hostilities, not only hostilities on Julan and Jabal al-Sheikh and Rif Damascus. They want to disarm the arms from Damascus to occupied Palestine. They want to mess up with the components of the Syrian state. They don't want Syria. They want Druze and Alawites. They want to have regions within Syria. Look into Jordan as well. A state has a relationship with Israel. What is the biggest threat of Jordan? It's what's happening into West Bank to expel the people of the West Bank and force them to go into Jordan. Look into Egypt as well, probably the longest relation with Israel. What is it doing? 3 or 4 days ago, Netanyahu was shedding the light on his concerns of the increase of the power of the Egyptian army, who is threatening Egypt in the land of Somal and Nile and its relations with Ethiopia, and trying to open another strait than the Suez Canal. Look into Turkey. Israel is trying to we will end the Shia acts. What about the Sunni as well? What's happening in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? It's been surrounded, and that's what probably the kingdom is aware of, and is trying to open trade routes in order to weaken and undermine our countries. Look into Qatar. It's a small country, but it has such a prominent role, and it mediated, and it did not start a war, a battle with Israel. Of course, it has such an honorable position towards the cause, but Israel is launching a campaign against Qatar because Qatar is a successful, rich country. Look into Algeria, Sudan, Yemen, wherever you go, and Iraq as well. There is Israeli danger to our own existence. How can we answer this question as Arabs and Muslims to adopt a strategy that can protect us, to protect ourselves in this unequal war, and to work in a joint effort, and to look for a good positioning for us in the international arena? The fourth and the last question is the problem of the world with Israel. Today, the world is awakened. You know, they always thought of Israel as a democratic entity similar to the Western culture, but it appears that this is an entity that gathered all the brutal crimes throughout the human history. Of course, the world feel quite angry. There is unprecedented sympathy towards the Palestinian cause. And I've seen and I've met many European American journalists, and they told me that there is a real change, a real shift in the sentiments of the youth and the level of social media, universities, the public opinion, and of course the world is realizing that Israel is a moral burden, a political burden, an economic burden as well. It's bleeding the money from the United States, and of course one of the reasons that led to the ceasefire, that the public anger that was reflected in the streets. So we, as Muslims and Arabs, what can we do? That do we still keep our defensive policies? No. Attack is the best defense. We have to confirm that it is a pariah entity and it is a burden and to the world, and to turn it into an entity with no legitimacy, very similar to the
فلسطينية. وأيضا مرة أخرى أقول علينا كعرب ومسلمين أن
similar to the apartheid system regime in South Africa. So within, of course, we are witnessing a shift in the international order. This is the message that I want. We are faced by 4 questions, very big key questions that we have to answer. We should not keep ourselves in that small corner. We have a just cause, and who's to be blamed and held accountable is the party that committed the genocide. Thank you, Mr. Khalid Mish'al, for these questions and for these remarks, and we will open the floor for questions. We have to go into the corner. We have to talk about the arms. Everybody is talking about the disarmament, and as one of the conditions of the second phase, which includes, as we all know, the Israeli withdrawal from the Yellow Line and supposedly to rebuild Gaza. Until now, the humanitarian aid is not allowed in full access, as we all know. What is And of course, this is not an Israeli demand. It is an American demand, and that is supported by the resolution of the Security Council and the Peace Council with many international parties. So it is a demand, not limited to Israel, but it is actually, it has this international aspect. What is your approach for this issue, for the arms issue, of course, for our viewers to know that the disarmament of the Palestinian, it was discussed after the end of the British mandate, and it was implemented under the British mandate. What is your approach to this issue? In the context of taking into consideration that the occupation is still on, the talk about disarmament will turn our people into a victim that can be easily preyed on by Israel. If we want to talk that there has been a war in Gaza, and there is a big issue, and an environment is required to be prepared for rehabilitation and rebuilding of Gaza, and for the war not to start. This is quite a reasonable approach, and Hamas, through mediators, Qatar, Turkey and Egypt, and through indirect talks with the Americans, there has been an understanding of Hamas position. Of course, so understanding from the mediators or from the Americans? No, from the mediators. And there is an attempt to sell that to the Americans. And I believe, I don't want to push things away from the Israeli blackmail. And as we see now from the, with the things in Iran, I believe that Israel is the inciting party. I believe that through our mediators we can reach the approach of guarantees, because Gaza, after this genocidal war, who can tell that after 10 or 15 years that Gaza the danger is from Israel and not from Gaza. Gaza needs a long time to recover, to have the international troops at the borders to maintain peace and to prevent any conflict. This is a guarantee. Hamas has offered a truce of 5, 7, 10 years. These arms will not be used, will not be displaced, and the three mediators can form a guarantee as well. The problem is not to guarantee Hamas or the resistance forces. The problem is in Israel that wants to take the Palestinian arms and to push it into the hands of the militias, to create chaos and for the weapons and to used with the silencers to commit assassinations. So disarmament, any case should be discussed within its general context. If some people wants to look at it from the Israeli point of view, for example, today you said maybe, and it is an international demand. This is not an international demand. Of course, there is an influence, but when I was discussing matters with certain European figures, and I wondered, I was talking to them, you recognize the Palestinian state, and you have this honorable position towards the Israeli state, and at the same time you want to remove Hamas from the stage. Although whoever pushed the Palestinian cause into the front line is what the resistance did in Gaza. I would like to demand the Europeans, the American administration, and different international powers to deal with the Palestinian cause within an objective point of view. So I'll open the space for questions from the audience. Good morning, Rawaja from Al Jazeera. First of all, you presented very important key questions. What is the answer of Hamas to these questions? And to start with building the national reference, where is Hamas today at the point of building a national reference? And do you think that how can Hamas, where Hamas can work, whom can Hamas work with within the Palestinian division, and the stage that comes after building the national reference? Do you think this national reference can build on and can work on criminalizing, for example, listing Hamas as a terrorist? As a terrorist group, and gives it legitimacy and to give it the characteristic of an armed resistance that resisting an occupation. When it comes to the international opinion, of course there is a shift, but at the policy-making level, there is still hegemony, and there is, of course, the American effort to separate Gaza from the West Bank. Do you think what is the Hamas is doing in order to unite to unite and to also to resist this project in a peaceful manner? Of course, the attempt to build a national point of reference started before Hamas, and after the establishment of Hamas. The first step that has happened was in March 2005 in Cairo, mid-March, and which established the election of the Legislative Council, which happened in January 2006, and then the municipalities, and was there were elections supposed to happen for the presidency in order to rearrange the political system for Palestine. After Hamas won the majority in 2006, it seems that the concerned parties have stopped the train of democracy in Palestine and stumbled, and same thing happened in 2011, and it was a promising step to what was known as the unified leadership framework, and there were two meetings in Cairo, and which were not followed up. And the reason behind the vision is an internal Palestinian reason, and of course the Israeli and Western attempts to punish the Palestinian Authority if they go into the national unity by preventing it from financing. Some people don't want to acknowledge the results of the Palestinian democracy. And when I discuss things with our brothers in the Fatah movement, who are our brothers and colleagues, and we told them it is a complex position. Maybe the ballots are not the only way to build the Palestinian reference. So maybe we don't want anybody to worry that it will be in favor of one party at the expense of others. When it comes to ballots and resorting to democratic option, the other thing is partnership. We cannot do things alone. We need all the Palestinians. We resort to ballots, but at the same time, we establish partnerships, alliances. Everybody is concerned with the Palestinian position and opinion and the decisions of the resistance as well. We hope that the PLO and decision making should not be limited to one person. We want a national point of reference, and this is our duty as Palestinians: is how to restore that unity and to express to be expressive of the Palestinians inside and outside. As for the international sympathy, it is big, and there are of course international policies that haven't really changed, especially in the Western capitals in the United States specifically. But I'm sure you know that the gains are accumulative and things start gradually until we have a strong wave, that would force the international community to turn the page on the occupation. Same thing happened with the apartheid system in South Africa. So this is these are historic events. We don't expect, we don't anticipate. We work and work hard to build history, and the world will acknowledge that. The Western pragmatic mindset, they try to resist, but if they find they are faced by strong populace will, they will give up. Any other questions? Greetings. May God's peace be upon you. I would like to welcome you, Qasim Al-Agha from occupied Palestine, from Khan Yunis. I would like to welcome you, and would like to welcome everybody from Khan Yunis and everywhere Palestine. Question. Khan Yunis is a Sinwar's country, and Rantisi, the city of heroes. When it comes to peace, to the Peace Council, we never heard an official position or a statement regarding Peace Council, the demands, the concerns you talked about, recovery for Gaza. It's time for Gaza to rest, to recover. What is the approach of the resistance or the vision of this to happen through your efforts with the mediators, with the Turks, with the Egyptians, with the Qataris? We want clarification in this aspect. Just to keep it short, of course, the details we discuss with the mediators and within the context of negotiations and dialogue. But here, when we want to discuss that in this forum, I just want to say that we are concerned to find an approach, a balanced one, that allows for the rebuild of Gaza, for the recovery of Gaza, and to allow the entrance of humanitarian aid for Gaza to regain its health. And this is the right of the people of Gaza. At the same time, we adhere to our national principles, and we don't accept the foreign interference or to reimpose a mandate. The Palestinians should govern Palestinians. Gaza is for Gaza. Palestine is for the Palestinians. We will not accept a foreign ruler. We won't have a premier like to be in Gaza. The role of leadership is to find that not only in Hamas but the leadership of all the Palestinians. Abu Walid, just a final question. We ran out of time, of course. So all that, how will it happen? How will you prevent the international mandate that people see that it is forming already? How will you stop that? Will you resort to using arms again with the continuation of these Israeli violations? We are talking since October until now, more than 500 martyrs have fallen and more than 1,000 people who are wounded with the demolition, of course, of Palestinian houses, and it didn't stop the killing of Palestinians or the destruction of Gaza. Do you think that Hamas will keep its position and that is watching the events and engaging with the moderators as well? My brother Zain, stopping the genocidal war was a very important achievement, and it is we don't want to go back into a war. Of course, killing is happening. The Israeli violations are taking place, and the Palestinian suffering, especially in this harsh winter conditions. We are dealing with them in approaches that are adherent to the independence of our decision, the national principle, and with a level of flexibility to what allows the rebuild of Gaza and not to give Israel a pretext. What is the element of power that we have? Of course, we cannot to use what is left of arms, and it is these are defensive arms. Our main source of force is to be present on the ground. What will the world do if there is people on the ground? All the forms of occupation have been tested, and they failed. So this abortion of the attempts of deportation, it's a great thing, and there was there were scenes and you were broadcasted in Al Jazeera where people were suffering from cold, hunger, and they have no shelter. Despite all these conditions, mothers are going back from Egypt to Gaza, and she was warning everybody, don't leave your homeland. Such a great people. Nobody can change that. No America, no Israel. And despite all that, we want to find approaches through the mediators with the international community in order to protect our people, and maybe we will witness next year that Palestine is free. Palestine is free, hopefully by next year when we have the Al Jazeera Forum. We'd like to thank Mr. Khalid Mish'al and the head of Hamas abroad, and we will go on a short coffee break, and then we will start another session about the resistance project, occupation plans, and the prospects for internationalizations. Thank you so much.